It's a rain-characterized Tuesday morning. Welcome to the AM News. My name is Pakwesi Shandov. To a very first story, documents, computers and scanners at the head office of the Land Commissions in Cantonment, Accra have been destroyed. The records room, files room and IT units of the new building were submerged in Saturday's flood waters. The affected documents include indentures, land maps and land documents. Samuel Mbura was at the Lands Commission and files this report.
The new Greater Accra Regional Office that has just quite recently been opened. Yes, we were concerned, but he assured us that so far not a single file or document has been lost. Then later on, we saw on the social media platform that Lands Commission, documents, files, everything gone. So we decided also to come here to pass by to verify whether what we are seeing on social media was the truth or not. So I informed him that I'll come here with some media men so that you will also see for yourself. Lo and behold, and fortunately, we've come and we've visited the place, we've verified, we've gone around, and we've seen that what the Executive Secretary and the staff of Lands Commission informed us is the truth. Yes, some flooding occurred here. Some rain seeped through from the construction site next door into the premises. But what we are all concerned about is safe. That is, all our data records, everything is intact. We've been there with you. You've seen the data center. Everything is there. You've seen the records room. Everything is there. Everything is intact. But then the good thing is that even what is wet, they've informed us that they have soft copy backup versions for that. And even going forward, they are going to reprint, although they've salvaged the few that got wet, they are going to reprint new ones to replace them. So we are showing all Ghanaians that you must all be rest assured and be calm and trust that all your documents that are with Lands Commission are safe.
Then was caused by the excessive rainfall that occurred on Saturday night. It was flooding all over the place. And some of our records were affected because you can see, if you go around, you see that this is one half of a bigger building. This part is complete and we are occupying it. The remainder is under construction. And so when you have a situation like this, you provide certain temporary blockages between this one and the old one. Where when it is complete, there is a corridor that is supposed to run between this building and the adjoining one. That is where we blocked it temporarily. Unfortunately, the contractor hadn't put in the permanent block work, and then the rain came. In fact, we had rains before this year and previously, and we haven't had any flooding. But it's just happened because of the mere strength and the volume of rainwater.
Now, the Lands and Natural Resources Ministry has called for all documents relating to the Achimota Forest Land Reserve to start an initial probe into the gifting of portions of the land by the late Forestry Commission boss to persons believed to be family members. Portions of Kojo Owusu Efriye, aka Sir John's 12-page bill, give away 3 different lands said to be situated within the Achimota Forest to some of his family members. Here is a news text report cataloging the events so far.
The alleged will of the former Chief Executive Officer of the Forestry Commission, Kojo Owusu Efriye, has sent tongues wagging over the true intention of the Akufo-Addo-led government to declassify portions of the Achimota Forest. When signed Executive Instrument EI 144 declassifying over 360 acres of the forest reserve and releasing it to the Owu family by the president became public, some Ghanaians accused the government of attempting to share state lands among itself and cronies.
What this government is doing is not a continuation of what previous government did in relation to the development of the Achimota Forest. 2 things stand out. The EI to declassify or reclassify the forest is something that previous governments did not consider. Secondly, previous governments did not allocate.
Government appointees led by the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Samuel Abu-Jinapor, denied the claim, saying it was only returning the said land to its rightful owners. The minister went a step further to add that he was only implementing the decision he came to meet when he took office as Minister of State.
Achimota forest will remain intact. As a matter of fact, we are in the process of reforesting the Achimota forest. We've been planting trees in the Achimota forest. Money has been voted for the reforestation of the Achimota forest. And we intend to even do more in, hopefully, in the not too distant future, turn the Achimota forest into a forest enclave in the likes of Hyde Park in London, Central Park in New York. So on the contrary, we are seeking to preserve the Achimota forest.
He further denied allegations government was in the process of selling the forest reserve.
On the contrary, the Achimota forest is not being sold. It cannot be sold, and President Akufo-Addo will never sell the Achimota forest. But there's not even an issue of sale here. There's no sale which is taking place in any form or shape.
Even before the dust was settled on the controversy, an alleged will of the late Owusu Afriye, popularly known as Sir John, has popped up, which bequeathed parcel of lands at the Achimota forest to his family. The will, making rounds on social media and authenticated by Accra-based 4th Estate, revealed that Sir John, who also served as the MPP General Secretary, owned portions of the forest. Page 4 of the said will, Ms. Owusu Afriye, who was CEO of the Achimota Forest until his demise and had oversight responsibility of the Achimota Forest Reserve, says, I gave my land situated at Achimota Forest in the name of Jacapro Limited and measuring 5.541 acres to the following persons: Yao Amwatin Afriye, Eva Akua Afriye, Ivy Akua Afriye, Elizabeth Asaribuatin, aka Mother, and Michael Owusu. That's not all. Page 5 of the will further releases a land also situated at Achimota Forest in the name of Faso Limited and measuring 0.987 acres to his nephew Michael Owusu, Yabwedu, and Kwabena Amwatin forever. The will claims Sir John jointly owns a piece of land at Achimota Forest with Charles Owusu. Upon his demise, according to the will, his portion of the said land should be given to Ruth Koko Odonko.
Cases of jaundice in newborn babies continue to rise in Ghana despite various campaigns to prevent such incidents. Pediatricians at the Kwadaso SDA hospital say lack of neonatal jaundice equipment is a hindrance in treating cases in the Ashanti region. There's more in the following report.
The Kwadaso SDA Hospital has received support from the Redeeming Hands Foundation, an NGO, to boost their healthcare service delivery. The foundation has donated a Firefly phototherapy machine worth 27,500 Ghana cedis for the treatment of neonatal jaundice. According to the president of Redeeming Hands Foundation, Wendy Boateng Oforiwa, the machine will help reduce infant mortality in line with attaining the Sustainable Development Goal 3 of good health and well-being.
I came to visit someone at the hospital, and then I happened to chance on the neonatal unit, and I realized how much they were struggling with the neonates who had jaundice. So we decided to put it on our platform and help raise awareness and equally raise money to get them an additional Firefly machine, which would help in fighting neonatal jaundice. Yeah.
According to pediatricians at the Kwadaso SDA Hospital, resources available can only treat one baby at a time. A neonatal nurse specialist, Juliet Yeboah, says the machine will help treat neonatal jaundice effectively.
We are going to derive a lot of benefits from the use of this machine, because looking at the cases that we see, majority of them are neonatal jaundice case. And what we have, the resource we have available right now, can just handle one baby at a time. So we are tempted to clinically judge and prioritize our care.
The month of May has been declared by the Pediatric Society of Ghana as the Yellow Month. The month is dedicated to intensifying the education of neonatal jaundice awareness in newborn babies.
Now, the paramount chief of the Isikado traditional area, Nana Kobna Nketia V, is urging law enforcement agencies to rather channel their energies into going after drug peddlers instead of those who smoke or use them. Nana Kobna Nketia made this remark at a workshop on the Narcotics Control Commission Act 2020.
The workshop, organized by Perfection of Sentiment Foundation in partnership with International Drug Policy Consortium and the West Africa Drug Policy Network Ghana chapter, on the theme Understanding the Narcotic Control Commission Act 2020, the role of the law enforcement and prosecutors in health, rights-based best practices to handling people who use drugs in the implementation of the Act. In his remark, the paramount chief of Fiscal traditional area questioned why the law is after the youth who mostly struggle to buy just one roll of weed but do not hold after people with questionable resources.
We have compassion, discretionary compassion. Let us use it. And then the important people that we need to chase are the pushers. The pushers. The pushers. Kwesindro was the one who used to talk about Ghana we are going into narco politics. Who gives our politicians money to run? We don't even query these things. We don't investigate them. There are people building houses all over the places, and we never ask for the sources of the work they do. And they are building. Then you come to a schedule and chase a little boy who takes blue, smokes ganja, so that he doesn't have any work. So he even wants to blacken the future.
Executive Director of Pause Foundation, Jonathan Osei Owusu, is also suggesting alternative ways to deal with drug users rather than jailing them.
When somebody uses drug, the person gets addicted to it. The person has a problem. When you are sick with a problem and with malaria, you don't go to prison because you need help, you need treatment. So we need the general public to understand that when somebody abuses drug, it could be alcohol, it could be marijuana, it could be anything. So far as the person is not peddling, trading, selling, but at least because of some useful exuberance or for some reason abusing it or becoming an addict, as we may call, we believe that person will need help rather than incarceration. Because in any case, some of them even get to the prison, and by some means they need to feed the addiction and even get it there. That is why we have some prisoners doing what we call pumping. Addiction is sickness. They will do whatever it takes to get it done. So if we are able to partially decriminalize this sort of as the new Narcotics Control Commission Act says, then it will help.
The former boss of the Narcotic Control Commission, lawyer Accra Sapon, in an interview says the agencies directly involved in enforcing narcotic laws should be innovative and rethink new ways in dealing with offenders.
If the person becomes a remand prisoner, does a policeman think about people in remand on drug charges for just possession and what that means to their human rights and to their health? These are things he must connect this, the whole length, because the whole spectrum of from arrest through investigation to final sentencing, so that in the final analysis it doesn't undermine the human rights and the health status of the guy involved.
For JoyNews, in Athalia Kwanza, Western Region.
Now, pupils of State Experimental School in Kumasi have for the past 2 years studied information technology theoretically with no access to computers. The school has had to struggle with the payment of electricity bills in the past year, hence their disconnection from power supply. There's more in the following report.
The State Experimental School, established in the 1950s, has since its inception not seen major innovations. The school, which sits in the heart of the Kumasi metropolis, is plagued with numerous deplorable conditions, including dilapidated classroom buildings. The school has no fence wall, and the recent disconnection to power supply has heightened the plight of students and management. David Opon is the Kumasi Metro Director of Education.
They are disconnected from the national grid, no electricity in the school. Why? Because they don't have money to pay for the utilities that they are enjoying. And on that score, we are appealing to parents, association, to mobilize resources themselves and come and support them in that respect.
This IT laboratory served the over 3,000 students population of both Basic 1 and 2 branches of the school, but it now sits non-functional with all computers packed aside. The school's inability to foot electricity bills is affecting the teaching and learning of IT. Headmaster of the Basic 2 branch, Solomon Osei Kankam, explains.
Because we are not able to pay for the electricity bill, because we have prepaid meters here, of which you have to pay before you can get lights. Because we are not able to pay, about 2 years now, we've not done any ICT practicals. We've never done any ICT practicals, only the classroom theory thing. And you know ICT, the children need to have practicals.
The school has churned out many notable personalities, including Dr. Eugene Sando, who recently built a toilet facility to ease congestion at the old facility. His father, Michael Sando, donated the facility on his behalf.
I learned he saw something on Joy FM, so that actually motivated him. It costs about 900,000 cedis. 900,000 cedis.
For Joy News, Emmanuel Bright Kweku reporting.
The story of a teenager in Kumasi who got the first book she authored whilst in class 6 advertised on Amazon is not only encouraging but an inspiration to the youth. Michelle Aduma says 174-page book Parents in Dark revealed how kids are highly exposed, especially in school, to the blind side of their parents and teachers. The teen author has completed yet another yet-to-be-published book as she dreams of becoming the best ever author in Ghana. She tells my colleague Ohimi Nteya her motivation is to write to entertain and save lives.
The story of Michelle is very important to us. We know how important writing is.
Born to a family of 5, Michelle Adumasi has passion for writing, something she says is a divine gift. This teen author is able to generate and write stories from her environment without blinking an eye.
Many things influence my writing. If you drop a pen, you can write something about it. Like, you wouldn't know unless I told you that it's because of the pen you dropped that influences writing. So everything around me influences my writing. Every single thing.
Using real-life scenarios and the human environment in her books not only makes her books distinct from other fictional books, but the taste of her readers.
Some of these places actually interest the readers. They want a story that is real. That makes them feel like they are in the book, they are part of the story going on, like they are the main character.
Michelle has since her infancy displayed extraordinary talent and skills, both home and school, topping her class. Her teachers at the Ridge School in Kumasi are happy about her exploits.
She was good in all aspects. She was on top of the class. And I wasn't surprised she has authored a book.
For Michelle, juggling writing with her academic work and house chores is not a big deal.
There's always time, because my school has taught us to plan our time well. So when you plan, I plan that at this time, I must write. Or at this time, I must write. If there's a chore I must do, I make sure I do it before the time to write comes.
Michelle's readers love her pieces for one thing. They visualize imaginary characters as if they are standing in front of them. Her sister, Emanuela Inshabasi, a law student at KNUST, is one of them.
Whenever I read her stories, I get so much into the story. It's either I get angry and insult the characters, like their real characters, or like I'm pleased with like the action the characters took, and it seems like it's real to me. Then later I'm like, oh, it's just a book, so let me just like relax.
Michelle's parents are happy at their daughter's exploits, describing it as an honor to the family. Though they funded the printing and production of Michelle's first book, they now lack the financial muscle to print the latest book.
Michelle has another book at the press, which we are trying to seek for support and sponsorship wherever it may come from. The first book had a volume of 200 pages. This second book has a volume of over 400 pages. And so from the estimate, we can think around between 15 to 20,000 to be able to come up with 500 or more.
14 author Michelle Adumasi, beyond the sky is the limit. But that dream can only become a reality when she gets the needed push. From Kumasi, for Joy News, Achimota reporting.
That's all for this morning's edition of the AM News. My name is Pakwesi Shando. Blessed Sugar continues with the rest of the program.
Well, and thanks for staying with us here on the AM show. Definitely we'll be delving into the newspapers shortly to tell you what's making rounds in terms of news. But we can't start off if we don't talk about the weather. Obviously, as we speak, the showers are still on and it's been a night of another downpour. The Ghana Meteo Agency obviously told us about that yesterday, but let's find out more from Joshua Asama, who's a senior forecaster at the Ghana Meteorological Agency. He's joining us via phone to help us understand what's happening now. Joshua, thank you. Good morning. And for how long are we expecting this showers to continue?
Yeah, well, good morning and good morning to everyone present. So we'll just see, it's already subsided, so we should see within the next few hours. By latest by 8, 9. Most places should have the rain.
And yesterday we also received some reports that this was going to be happening for a period of 3 days. How true is this report that we're getting?
For a period of 3 days?
Yes, I'm talking generally about the trend of the showers that we witnessed overnight. The concern, I mean, we saw news reportage that the forecast is that the trend will continue for over a period of 3 days. Is that what you're projecting from your office?
I think that was the discussion you had with one of my senior colleagues in the office, who is with the seasonal forecast. And he was indicating that if you look at the trend over the years, some of these conditions would happen, as in having those kind of rainfall like we had on Saturday, could happen for like 3 or 4 times within a season. And it was possible we could have another 3 times before the season ends. I think that was what was said. But yesterday I was saying that around this time we get rain that lasts longer, even though the intensity may not be that high, but because of the duration, the longer duration, it usually brings lots of devastating pests. And when we are at the start of the season, gets very windy conditions and rain, but over a short period of time. That one is more intense, and it comes with lots of gusty winds. But during this period, they don't really come with the gas and sandy conditions, but then they last longer. That's really the difference between the peak of the rainfall season and the onset. So that's what we are seeing now. But like I told you yesterday, we don't get it more often. So this condition will not happen every day. We see it once in a while, but it's not the range that we should expect that it will last for some time before.
And so generally, what would you say that the public must be on the lookout for?
I think the best thing we can do is knowing our way around. So each day you are aware of what would happen during the day. You know how you can plan your day. Yesterday in the morning, I said at 5 a.m. there was a forecast that areas along the coast should expect rain into the night, and that is what we are seeing now. Those who have the flood risk up will also attest that there was a message sent to them that they should expect rain from the night to dawn this morning. So if you get these messages and you plan your day according to them, I'm not sure you worrying and be troubled by no peaceful activities. But at least that's good news for us in Greater Accra. It will not be that frequent, and so we won't have so much problem.
Well, are there some platforms that you're creating to constantly update the public on the weather?
Yes, there is. We actually have about 8 WhatsApp groups. Once the group is full and people are requested to pick another one, and now the highest number of groups, the highest number you can have in a group has increased to 500. So we're getting lots of people on our platform, and on Facebook or Twitter too, we are updating most frequently. So that's actually platforms where we are getting everything done.
Are we expecting that the intensity of the rains may heighten as the days go by? And I'm asking this question because of the chart that you introduced to us yesterday, talking about the fact that once we inch closer and closer to June, then we're in for more and more rains. Is that what we're supposed to expect?
So like I said yesterday, the intensity is actually lesser during May, June, that's the typical rainfall season, than March, April, which is the onset. Because during the onset, we get very heavy rainfall, but they last for a shorter period of time. And so in the end, if you're taking the 24-hour accumulation, we think that probably wasn't anywhere, because having the 20 millimeters is something small. But if you look at the period it took to accumulate the 20 millimeters around that time, and then you take the period it's taken to get, let's say, 100 millimeters within these 24 hours in May and June, we realize that the intensity was rather higher during the March period than it is now. But because we are getting it over a longer period of time, we are getting higher accumulation within 24 hours. So rainfall amounts to 24 hours higher during May and June than March and April. So we should expect higher the 24-hour rainfall around this time, but not the highest intensity.
Okay then, I guess we'll have to leave it there. Obviously, we'll be getting in touch intermittently, but to know what the weather forecast will be, and we'll be on the lookout for that here on the Joy News channel, just to inform you out there, just so you know about the weather. And also would like to caution at this moment that if you're driving, drive with a lot of caution this morning, because you obviously know that the weather is not favorable, so visibility could be down, and then as a driver you need to take precautions. So that's our advice to you this morning, but it's a good time to get into the papers. Let's do the news review here this morning, and also tell you about the newspapers that we have. At least we have 2 here with us. The Daily Graphic is with us this morning, and the Daily Graphic is talking about that high-level meeting between President Akufo-Addo and also the Mozambican president, who's in the country as we speak, Felipe Jacinto Nyusi. That's his name. He's in Ghana for a working visit, and of course the Daily Graphic has been talking about that. So on the front page of the Daily Graphic, it says that Ghana, Mozambique condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So it appears that some African leaders are, including our leader and then that of Mozambique, they're also wading into this discourse on what's happening elsewhere in the world. And then Ghana ready for mining hub. That's according to the sector Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Samuel Abu-Jinapor. And we have also on the front page of the Daily Graphic, Tourism Ministry partners City of New York to grow the sector. So we know that the New York mayor has been engaging the tourism minister, Ibrahim Awal. We'll tell you about it shortly. And also AFDB launches $1.5 billion food emergency plan for Africa. So if you want to know about the plan, definitely the details are captured on page 16 of the Daily Graphic. Then we go to the Finder newspaper this morning. The Finder newspaper is talking about the sanction from the National Petroleum Authority. The NPA has fined 7 companies, in total some 1.55 million Ghana cedis. So the details of the story on page 5 of the Finder newspaper. And Africa depending on foreign portfolio investors dangerous. That's according to the MTN CEO, Ralph Mopita. His picture is right there on the front page as well. And AFDB outdoor support for 20 million farmers to avert a food crisis on the continent. So it comes to the president of the group, Dr. Adesina, giving some details there. Government engages stakeholders ahead of a 10 billion U-Start launch in June. We know that it's part of a grand plan by the Ministry of Finance to deal with the unemployment situation in the country. Comes with a picture of the Deputy Minister, Dr. John Kumar, right there on the front page of the Finder newspaper. Guess what? Yesterday when we were talking about flooding, apparently the Lands Commission was also affected. So it's captured here on the Finder newspaper, the front page. Despite floods, land documents are safe. So there was a talk by the Deputy Lands Minister, Benito Owusu-Bio. We understand that some papers have been, of course, taken away by the flood waters, but the assurances we are getting from the the Lands Commission is that their document and record and database is safe. So as to whether or not that would also affect some papers on the controversial Achimota Forest Reserve, we're not too sure about that. And finally, Ghana teams up with New York mayor. So that's a part of plans of the tourism ministry to make Accra the hub of tourism on the African continent. So we'll be getting into the details shortly. But if you're listening to us this morning, we know that it's been raining in some parts of Accra for the past 4 hours. So what's your situation? What's the situation in your area where you are now? We'll be opening the phone line so you can share your thoughts with us, and your experiences as well. The phone lines will be active shortly, so you can share that with us before we obviously delve into the newspaper. So let's roll the numbers on your screens now and also give you the opportunity to share with us what the situation is on, where you are. Also on social media, it's at JoyNews on TV. Just feel free, go onto our page. You'd definitely find an opportunity there to share your comments. I'll be taking them shortly. So 0302-211-691 or 692. The numbers are on your screens now. You can obviously give us a call so we hear from you this morning. It's been raining for the past 4 hours, I should say. Past 4 hours. 0302-211-691 or 2. Just give us a call and let's hear from you. So we'll come to that shortly. But how about welcoming my very good friend, the media consultant with Liz Hayfron. Liz Hayfron Asari is our guest this morning, helping us to digest what it is that we're seeing in the dailies today. Liz, it's good to be talking to you this morning. Quite a wet morning it is. How about you? How are you doing?
I'm just a very wet morning. My electricity is out. I was trying to hotspot so I could use my laptop, but it's not working, so I'm back to my phone.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that definitely ECG will do something about your situation. But if you're also hearing us, maybe tell us if you have power or not. We'll talk about that shortly. But let's head right into the newspapers this morning. Obviously, there's a talk about tourism, so I'd like to start off with that. Ghana is teaming up with New York, the city of New York, to make Accra one of the hubs for, not Accra necessarily, but Ghana, one of the hubs for tourism, in terms of tourist destinations in the world. The sector minister has been indicating that it's part of efforts just to drive more and more investment into our country. So it's good news, isn't it, for us?
It's not the first time, is it? We've heard that over and over again, but we never seem to be able to get our act together. So we keep going back to the drawing board and trying to promote tourism like we should. We have a lot of tourist attractions that we need to develop, and we need to be able to sync them together. So if a tourist is coming in, the person is not coming to see one spot, but probably if the person has a week, then there are various activities for the week. We are not seeing that.
And just recently, the president launched Destination Ghana. I'm sure you've heard about that program. Is that to suggest that some of these interventions are not necessarily working for us?
I won't say they aren't working, because we still have tourists coming in. But what we haven't been able to do is to measure the tourist satisfaction when they come in. Again, I haven't seen that much promotion with regards to tourist attractions. So when they come in, are they coming to find for themselves where they should go, or we have a package that they can probably sign up to, so that when they come, they know that they're going to see a number of things before they go back. Ghana is rich. Ghana is very rich when it comes to tourism, but we haven't packaged ourselves properly.
Where really lies the problem? Is it about packaging, or it's a situation of not having too much investment from the private sector into the various tourist destinations that we have in the country?
I think that we haven't looked at it holistically. We should be able to marry all that together. It should be the private sector, government, tourist attractions being developed. We should be able to deal with all as a whole. And if we do, then we probably would be putting our best foot forward. We haven't been able to do that. We keep saying that private sector, we know that the cost of doing business in Ghana is pretty high when you look at the interest rates. So people would shy away and would look for something that will give them a quick turnaround. So if we do not look at the investment in tourism and how best we can attract the private sector, we'll have them investing in hotels, and the tourist attractions will be left in the states that they are.
Let's see.
So we should be able to marry.
Yeah, let's see if that works in the coming days. But obviously, it's been a rainy morning. That was the situation over the weekend as well. And it appears that we're having to deal with the effects of the downpour and flooding. It's here. It's even affecting the Lands Commission. That's how heavy the impact of flooding has been on Accra. So yesterday, just as we were talking about the experiences of flooding in Accra, it appears that the Lands Commission here in Accra was also affected. Some documents were destroyed, apparently, by the rain. So it took the Deputy Minister there, Benito Usubio, and it's captured on the front page of the Finder newspaper. So the Deputy Minister is assuring us that despite the floods, land documents are safe. Do you believe the assurances we're getting from government, particularly when we see in the reports and the pictures that obviously some papers have been destroyed as a result of the downpour? Lisa, are you there with us?
I don't know what to say. I think that, yes, I'm here.
Yes, you were making a point there.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, so if you can hear me, I'm just asking about the recent reports we are getting. In fact, government is giving assurances that despite the flooding at the Lands Commission, what we know is that the documents, the land papers and everything is safe.
Well, I don't know about those assurances. My question is, why should the documents be destroyed in the first place? What kind of arrangements do they have in keeping their documents? If they're not in cabinets, if they're not being kept properly. I mean, because to see documents on the floor suggests that it probably was scattered by something. How high from the ground are the documents being kept? What level did the water rise to have all those documents scattered? I think that it borders on carelessness, if you ask me, because if we're supposed to be keeping documents that belong to other people, we should be keeping them properly. And if we are not, then it behoves on us to start doing that. Again, if documents are in paper form, what about computerizing and keeping those documents in electronic form? Can't that be done? If it can't be done, why hasn't it been done? And again, if you're keeping documents, why are you keeping them on the floor? Why don't we have cupboards or cabinets or shelves that we can put them on, so that even if it floods, the waters won't rise to that level? The waters won't rise that high to be able to destroy the documents.
In fact, in all of this, what's shocking to me is the fact that this is a government which says it's driving the digitalization agenda. So if that's the case, and we know that the Vice President has been keen on this, the fact that we need to go digital, how come that we're still dealing with quite a huge number of documents in this age?
Exactly. So we should be able to store our documents better. We should be able to provide, if it's in terms of resources, we should be able to provide the necessary resources for keeping documents and keeping the documents well.
And well, some Ghanaians are on social media as well, drawing some conspiracy theories about what's happened. It happened at the time when, of course, Ghanaians are waking up to this viral leak of a will by the former forestry CEO, that's Sir John. Obviously, his will, portions of it indicating that some parts of the Achimota Forest Reserve is being given as part of his will. So there are those who are drawing that conspiracy theory. Are you buying that?
Well, anything in Ghana now is possible, isn't it? And I don't think that the will is a leak. The will has been read, so it has become a public document. Again, so it is again a public document, so everybody can see it. So I don't think that it is a leak. And again, definitely we would draw conspiracy theories because of the lands that are involved in the will. And for me, it's very disheartening. It's a sad incident if we have our top officials apportioning onto themselves what belongs to us as a people. You can't come and grab what belongs to the state and be sharing it amongst yourself as if it's for petty. And so if those transactions have been made, they should be reversed, and we should keep what we have as a people. It belongs to us as the state. To think of the Ramsar tribes being sold as land. And then
well, we'll try and reconnect the lines. Obviously, I suspect due to the rains, it's having a toll on our connection to Lise Fronasari. But she's been speaking to us about this controversy surrounding the Achimota Forest Reserve. In fact, it's also being captured this morning on the Daily Dispatch. The front page talks about the fact that the Sector Minister Samuel Abujinapo is giving assurances that we are investigating claims that the late Sir John gifted portions of Achimota Forest. So it comes with a picture of the Sector Minister Samuel Abujinapo. And then the bigger story on that newspaper, the Daily Dispatch, it says, "Fight against terrorism in Ghana. Government rolls out see something, say something campaign." So that campaign is actually starting today. We understand that the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, will be leading that charge. The very first session will happen together with the Information Minister, Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah, and then we'll have the National Security Minister, Albert Kandapa, join that force. So that's the team that will be obviously leading the charge in terms of the education on this imminent terror attack that's about to hit Ghana. The security agencies have been filling us on that. NPA finds 7 companies, 1.5 million Ghana cedis. Comes with a picture of Dr. Mustafa Hamid, CEO for the National Petroleum Authority. And then obviously the last one there is democracy has been good to Ghana, but how good? That's a great question we should be exploring this morning. The Daily Guide newspaper is here. The Daily Guide is going big on this controversy, and it reads, "Government probes Sir John's Achimota Forest gift." So it comes with a picture of the late Sir John, and Daily Guide has been digging into the probe and what it is that the ministry intends to do. But then, still on the Daily Guide newspaper, there's a talk about the resumption of parliamentary activities today. All of them are starting today. We understand that the MPs are supposed to resume work in the chambers today. So we're expecting some of the MPs will be joining us. A lot has been on the table for the MPs. Indeed, some of the MPs are already asking the sector minister, I'm talking about the Lands and Natural Resources Minister, Samuel Abu-Jinapor, to show up in Parliament and to answer some questions on the Achimota Forest Reserve. So probably we should be on the lookout for that. We'll find out from the MPs what exactly it is that they are demanding. 39 battle for Ashanti NPP regional post. So that tells you how the NPP has been engaged in a very fierce internal race in the Ashanti region. An appeals court dismisses Atoesian's case, and these are some of the stories on the front page of the Daily Guide newspaper. Liz Hayfron is back. Let's see if the connection is better now. Liz, so we know that obviously Parliament is resuming their activities today, and some of the MPs are already talking about the Forest Reserve, indicating that there will be mounting pressure on the sector minister to show up in the House. But beyond that, what's your expectation as the House resumes? It's not been a good start for them.
Good start, what do you mean?
I mean, we've seen some confrontations and clashes in the last session. It's been heated, it's been divided. So, well, the expectation is that we may continue if nothing changes in the chamber.
I think that they will have to change. I think that they need to be able to build consensus. I think that they need to be able to speak to each other more. It is not should I say do or die affair. It is a place where they're looking at building our nation and giving us laws that would cause us to be able to ride the storms when the storms come, or sail through smoothly when we have to. So it behoves them to work together. The polarization that we have in this nation has not helped. And so if your MPP decides to go a certain way, everybody will toe the line, whether they agree with it or not, and same for NDC. I think that we should have a lot more objective MPs speaking truth to power and not just following because that is the line that they believe they should follow because it belongs to the party. It's not the party alone that they should be looking at. They should be looking at nation building as a whole. And if you want to leave a name and if you want to leave a mark, then you have to make sure that you're being objective and you're being serious with building the nation, so that when people are talking about how the nation got built after your time in Parliament, your name will be mentioned and you'll be standing tall. There are a few MPs that are doing well. There are a few MPs that will speak the truth. But to voting, you realize that they either step out of the chamber, or if they are in the chamber, you probably won't hear their voice in the mix.
Right.
It's the loudest voices that will carry the day. So I think that we need to have our parliamentarians look out for us as a people on both sides and not think of themselves and the party first. They should be thinking about Ghana first.
And one of the thorny issues in the House as well has got to do with attendance and also the controversy surrounding the conduct of some 3 MPs, including the Gender Minister, Sarah Jasafo. That issue will definitely come up again.
It should, and I believe that if the law says that after a number of days, if you are absent without any justifiable excuse, your seat should be put. We are keeping the seats when the people are not showing up. It means that their area, their constituency is not being represented in Parliament, and we need everybody to be represented, and we need to be serious as a people. So if we are not using the laws, even in Parliament, then why are they promulgating laws for others to obey?
Interesting. We know that we're just about some 9 days to that big government intervention. The Youth Start program, government says, is targeting to give some 10 billion Ghana cedis to stimulate the entrepreneurial skills of the youth out there so as to create more jobs. What's your take on that policy intervention?
I haven't studied it, so I won't want to talk to it directly. But just to say that the youth need to be creative and they need an environment in which their creativity would thrive. If we're giving them money to start businesses or to start enterprises, when they start them, what is the market like? Have we done any feasibility or any market survey to ensure that when they start off, they would carry it through? Again, why I hope we are not looking at individuals, but we are looking at corporates. And if we are looking at cooperatives, and if we are looking at cooperatives, then we can look at growing those cooperatives to become big companies in the future. But we need to give them the support that they need, especially with those who have very good proposals that we feel that would impact the nation positively.
Okay then, so we'll get into the details of that shortly, but then we are also on that wild terror alert. I'm sure that you've heard about it already. The Daily Dispatch newspaper is also talking about it. Government rules out see something, say something campaign. It's been spearheaded by the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, as I talked about earlier. So here we are, uncertain times for us as a sub-region and also as a country. But do you feel that the public awareness, this education drive that government intends to embark on will be the most effective way of making people aware of this?
I think it should have started earlier than now. When we heard about Burkina Faso and Mali and now Togo, that is very close to us. But when we heard of it, when it was not as close as Togo, we should have started educating the populace on what to do and how to maneuver in times like these. We should have started the education long ago. But well, let me say it's not late in coming. It just is said that now it has to be intense. We have to be talking about it every day. We have to be educating everybody every day. And like it said, when you see, you say something. So when you see something that is not normal in your environment, you need to speak up. You need to say it to somebody. You need to tell somebody. My only worry is that sometimes when you go to report things to the police, they end up treating you as if you're the criminal, and that is the problem why people won't speak up. But now it has become very clear that we are on the brink of an attack, and so everybody needs to speak.
And then obviously this should be coming from you because you have some expertise in that area. The approach government is using political figures in driving awareness. Some say that will not be healthy for us, knowing how polarized the country is, and so we need some more independent faces on that campaign. What's your take on it?
I agree, and especially with the campaign, much as we need independent faces, we need also a lot more security. When I talk about security, let's see the chief of staff and the service commanders and the IGP coming out and speaking and telling people that it is a serious matter and therefore you have to be very careful, you have to be very observant. Again, yes, independent faces across board because people trust in certain people. So we can use the chiefs, we can use queen mothers because people will listen to them and people will take what they're telling them serious.
So it's starting today. We're not too sure if it will take a decentralized approach, but will that also be welcome in terms of moving it all across the country and not just perhaps being in Accra, engaging a few stakeholders and that ends it?
Yeah, it needs to be decentralized because you can never tell where they're going. We don't know what they're targeting. We don't know where they will cause problems. So definitely it needs to be decentralized.
Okay then, democracy has been good, but how good has it been to Ghana? That's the question the Daily Dispatch is also asking. Very interesting question there. What's your take?
Democracy has been good since 19. We have tried to be democratic. Has it really been good? We have ended up not having a multi-party democracy like we envisioned it, so that we would have more. We now seem to have just a two-party nation, because in Parliament you just have two parties. All the other parties are there, but they don't have any representatives in Parliament. They don't have representatives anywhere, and you hardly hear them speak. So when we say democracy has been good, what exactly are we looking at? If you're looking at the fact that Parliament has been in existence since '92 and we haven't had any coups, then yes. But if we're looking at democracy the way democracy should run, where it is of the people, by the people, for the people, then we question. Because if you say to me it has been of the people, by the people, for the people, say no. When a party wins, it's for a section of the people, because they are the ones who benefit if their party is in power. Others who have not colored themselves, you'd hardly put them anywhere. So we need to work at a more inclusive government where everybody has a take, and we need to see democracy work in terms where everybody feels that they are comfortable, everybody feels that they can have a say, and everybody feels that they'll be listened to.
And this brings back the age-old conversation about the need to review the fourth democratic framework. I'm talking about the 1992 Constitution. Some processes have started with the Civic Education, the Commission, that's NCCE. They've told us that they're engaging stakeholders on a possible report that perhaps may lead to the president or the authorities that be called for a review of the Constitution. How soon should that happen? Possibly re-looking at our gains over the years and trying to make some changes?
Until I know what changes are to be made, I probably won't go that way. I think that if there are amendments to be made to the Constitution, it's good to have stakeholders meetings and have people talk to that. But I believe that it's not the whole Constitution that needs to be changed. It's not the whole Constitution that is wrong. There are certain amendments that need to be made. For example, we talk about the president in power having all kinds of executive powers, and thus very powerful, and whatever he says is what should write, and that is in the Constitution. How would we look at that to make sure that when we have a president in power, it's not him alone who calls the shots, that other people can contribute also to the governing of the nation? I would have liked to see the other parties, the minority parties that are not in Parliament, still being able to contribute to the progress of our democracy. But we are not seeing that. You don't hear them to the next elections. Then you hear about all these parties. They put up candidates. They don't make much when it comes to putting people in Parliament or getting a representation anywhere. And therefore their voices die out after elections. So what are we looking at when we talk about a democracy? Let's look at how we can incorporate all these people, despite the fact that they probably did not make much of a showing during elections. They definitely have something to contribute. But when you talk about the Constitution, what are you going to replace the Constitution with another Constitution? If there are amendments to be made, let's look at the amendments and let's make them.
And it's good that you're raising this point, because obviously if there are some changes, the belief is that we should also be focusing on one of the key points around which our democracy revolves, which is elections and the constitutional body which runs that operation. The EC has been subject to a lot of political scrutiny, I mean, particularly from the political parties, but the belief is this is the time to rewire the appointment process and how the leadership of such a constitutional body is elected. What's your view on that as well?
I believe that that's the way we should go. Excuse me. If you look at when Afarijan was the EC, you realize that he was a man of metal. So people could not move him to do their bidding, and so the political arena was more or less weary of him, and so he saw changes in government from one government to another, and I think he did it 2 or 3 times. And people realized that he wasn't going to be moved by what the political parties were doing. But as it is now,
right?
We all see a lot of to find a word to use. We all see a lot of interference from government when it comes to the EC, especially the incumbent, and therefore people do not really trust the EC when it comes out with the results, because everybody feels that strings have been pulled and that the EC will do the bidding of whoever puts them there. And so we have colored the EC also. And so the whole of the Electoral Commission would sway a certain way because of who the incumbent is. And that, for us, is very worrying. That should be very worrying for us. We need some who able to stand.
All right, then. Okay, then we seem to be having the challenge once more, but it's been worthwhile speaking to you this morning. Media consultant Liz Hayfron-Asari, our guest, helping us out there with the newspaper review. When we return, we'll have your say as well, and also you could feel free to share your experiences with us after 4 hours of a downpour again. The question is, how were you affected by this morning showers? We'll talk about that. This is the AM show on the JoyNews channel. Please stay. And thanks for staying with us here on the AM show on the JoyNews channel. Now, we know certainly that it's been raining for the past 4 hours. So what's the situation in your area? That's the question we're asking on social media this morning. We'll be allowing you to also share your thoughts with us via phone shortly, but let's go through some of the comments briefly. So we're asking on social media on JoyNews, it's been raining in some parts of Accra for the past 4 hours. What's the situation in your area? Guess what people have been saying. So this is from Prince Johnson. He says, showers in my area. So that's the condition now. It's still raining, as Victus Kwabena is telling us. Then we have Jerry Ampa. Jerry Ampa says that the rains just started at Agona Nyakrom in the central region. And then we also have one coming through from Abdallah Baba Musa. Cloudy and cool here in Ejura. It's happy and refreshing to know that. Good morning to you, Abdallah Baba Musa. And then Raymond is coming through. Raymond Gate says the situation is that okay. Then we have to obviously skip that one. Voni Dakeku says that at Wager, the situation is that at 9:30 to 5 a.m. There was a heavy non-stop rain with thunder and lightning. Now the lights, there's a light rain. That's the situation around Wager. So more and more of you have been commenting on the matter. There's one coming through from Barry Deborah. Barry Deborah says, very bad. Even my compound is full of water. I can only imagine what's going on out there. And I don't know if it's safe to head to work. But if you are obviously stepping out this morning, you need to be very cautious. As we're urging you, you need to drive safely. Also make sure that you reduce the speed, because visibility is definitely down in such a time. And obviously Nana Money says that it has been raining here since yesterday, and I like it because it stops my girlfriend from leaving. That's a very funny one. So yes, well, a lot of people are aligned to the comments you're posting out there, and some of them have been replying to the comments below. I don't want to go into the details of that. So let's go to Na. Na says that I have the lights have been taking off at Adenta Estate Street, just behind the Sneed flat for 4 days now. You call the ECG office, no one is responding. So it looks like that's actually complicating the situation right now. The rains are out and you don't have electricity. Sparrow G says, my problem is that after this flood, parts of Accra won't still have water. Citizens won't have water to drink and through their pipes. It's sad. Flood is almost taking Accra, and farms in the Volta region won't be having water to do irrigation. So that's the concern there. Davi Yawa Enyunam is here. Davi says that which of course, it's also a reply to what our earlier the person was indicating earlier, indicating that every year people keep repeating the same thing, talking about how the flooding situation is becoming a perennial problem here in Accra. Andrews Jericho says that my lecturer is already in class waiting for me, but Menso Madak, obviously, this is someone who's not ready for school today. And so Andrews would urge you to still try and wake up, drag yourself out of bed and make sure that you meet your schedules for the day. Haji Malik is here. He says that the government should cancel all schools and work because the situation in some areas is not good at all. Well, that's what you're reporting to us. Some of you have been telling us how your area is flooded. We'll get into the details shortly, but the phone lines are also on your screen, 0302211691 or 692. You can give us a call right away. We'll be happy to hear from you. Bernard Saba is here. Bernard says that I always say, even if Accra is free in terms of the plot, I don't like it. And apparently it's because of some of these flooding issues. Stanley is joining us right here in Accra via phone. Stanley, good morning, and what can you tell us about the situation in your area? Hello, Stanley. Okay, we are having difficulties hearing Stanley. So this one is coming through from Vidmas.
Yeah,
says,
good morning.
Okay, yes, Stanley is back. Stanley, let's hear you.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, Stanley.
Good morning.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Stanley. The lines are not favorable, but we'll try and reconnect, Stanley. You can also give us a call. The numbers are on your screens right now for you to call, but let's do more of the messages as we await your calls. This one is coming through from Posha. Posha Kafri says it's been raining since last night at Ashade Bochwe, and so that's the comment coming through from Posha. Berimal 82 says it is because it's raining. It's been raining since last night. Let's pray for the homeless. Quite a touching one there. And Rita Amposa is here. Rita says that it's been raining since last night till this morning, and it's still raining in my area, and very, very cold. Then we have one coming through from Lalashman Bota. It says that normal here in Kumasi, Bantama, but the clouds have changed into darkness, meaning it could rain anytime soon. So that's the situation at in some parts of the Ashanti region. Stanley is back again. Let's see if the lines are better now. Stanley, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, then. Yes, so let's hear your thoughts now. What's the situation in your area?
Okay, I'm asking why always we depend on one problem for long without solution. Why is the authority? Because we always blame the president. What about the agencies? Where are they? It's not like Ghana, we don't have any agency, we don't have any authority. Why? You know how Ghana is going? I don't know. See the fraud. See how it has happened. See Abeka Junction. See how sorry, it's too much. It's too much. They should call the authorities and do something about it. Because what is happening is too much. Every year. Eh? Why? Why? We keep on spending money on one thing every day. Why? How can Ghana go forward with all these things? Uh-huh. You want to lose life before we can take action of it. Why? So authorities stop there. They should do something about it. See what is happening. See, even on your video, see. Oh. All right.
Okay then, Stanley, I see that you're very frustrated about what's happening in the capital. We'll also take more of your calls, so 0302-211-691 or 692. Let's do more. Hafiz is also joining us on the lines from Newtown. Hafiz, good morning. What's the situation in your area?
Hello.
Hafiz, yes, let's hear you. Hafiz, can you hear me?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, Hafiz. What's the situation like in your area?
Yeah, it's been raining since around 12 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And the situation is very bad.
Hafiz?
Yeah, people have to flee from their homes and they have to rush because their homes were flooded. And it was so terrible. So last night I was in the room and I heard people screaming. I have to peep through my window, and then the situation was so bad.
Hafiz, okay, thank you for calling us. But anytime you call us, please make sure that you turn down the volume on your TV set so we can hear you. Geoffrey is in Accra. Geoffrey, good morning. What's the situation in your area? Geoffrey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. How are you?
I'm doing well. I hope you are too, and I hope you're safe wherever you are.
Yes, I'm safe, but I can also not complain. I have a general problem with development in Accra in particular and Ghana in general. This is the issue. I'm told in 1922, Accra got flooded. And I asked, in 22 and in 1960 or there, when Accra got flooded, was the city of Accra as big as we have it today, where literally Accra spans from Winneba up to Sege, up to Nsawam and Ebri. The extent to reach very low-lying areas, which ought not to have been developed into residential areas, are so been developed. I dare say that flooding in Accra will continue for the foreseeable future. I am not a prophet of doom, but the general nature of Accra makes Accra very prone to flooding. Accordingly, we have to ensure that those who have developed or those who are now going to develop in very low-lying areas are prevented from development. When you attempt climbing the Ebri Hill, then, my brother, I tell you, Accra is sitting on a time bomb. Where will the rain off pass? Our drains are blocked. Either they are too small or they are choked. People are filling wetland areas, which will have served as a retaining area when the rains are heavy. All these places have been filled, and we are looking on. I pray that as a nation, we decide that we don't do certain things as individuals before even the assemblies and government come in. If your building is so close to the Odo River, know that in perpetuity you've decided to get your house flooded. Not much can be done in terms of this engineering. But in the 80s, when the Odo was dredged and then the concrete made, flooding stopped for a short while, but thereafter it continued. Let me raise my point here. Thank you.
All right, then. So that's the concern of Geoffrey this morning, joining us right from the capital, Accra. And we're still focusing on this matter. But for now, we'll definitely hold on with the calls and then continue with that conversation later on. We know as well that Parliament is resuming its activities in the chambers today after a break, which happened in April. The MPs took a break just to do constituency work, but now we are expecting that they'll converge once more in that very controversial chamber, as it is being termed now. So what are we to expect, and how differently should the Legislative Chamber be conducting its business going forward? Joining us now is Dr. Rashid Rahman, Executive Director, Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs. Doc, such a good time to be speaking to you this morning. So we know that there were some outstanding matters when Parliament actually went on a little break. They are returning. Which of them would you want to see the House restart with, really? There are so many issues, from absenteeism to so many controversies on the floor of the House. But what's paramount for you as the House begins business today?
Well, a very good morning to you. I think the big issue after e-levy is the issue of absenteeism and the referral to the Privileges Committee. That was done by the Right Honourable Speaker before the House went on recess, albeit there were controversies even around that in terms of procedure and so on and so forth. Nonetheless, I think the Privileges Committee, I would assume, has done its work. And now it's time to bring the matter back to the plenary. And I think Ghanaians are expecting to see some closure on this matter, because over the years, Parliament after Parliament, this issue of absenteeism has been a thorn, if you like, in the flesh of our legislature. And I just hope that this time around, Parliament will get it right and set a very good example to the extent that, you are hired to show up and work. And if you don't show up, I think the rules that Parliament itself set for the House should be allowed to take course. So that's the first one that I would.
And on that point, I recall speaking to the aide of the Dom Kwabenya MP, Sarah Joseph, who's been at the center of all of this, and the indication we're getting from these political appointees, or persons working around the MP, is that she may be back this time round. Will that be good news, or perhaps you feel the damage has already been caused?
Well, that would be good news. I thought she was back because the Privileges Committee, I don't know how they did their work. Maybe they did that virtually, because each and every one of the 3 MPs, I believe, should have had their day before the committee to explain themselves and maybe tender in any evidence that there is in terms of why they've been caught by that provision in the standing orders of Parliament. If she's coming back, I think that is good news, not only for Parliament, but I believe for also the Ministry of Gender and Social Protection, particularly at this time. I just saw on your screens, flooding that is going on in our country, all the people that are going to be caught in this, particularly people that are very, very vulnerable in our society. They need protection, and I think that this minister is at the center of it, and she can't be absent, both from the ministry and from Parliament. So I think it's good news that she's going to be around.
Interesting point you're raising there. We all were of the view that we've gone past the deadlock in Parliament, obviously as the e-levy has now been passed, but then government is giving us some clear indications that another controversial piece of legislation, or perhaps ratification, would have to take place, and it's got to do with the Ejapa deal, for instance. The minority has already served notice that it will not compromise on that. Many say we're in for another troubling time, right?
Yes, indeed. I think that's the next issue, the Ejapa deal. We had civil society, we had the Minister for Finance, we had the former president, we had the minority group in Parliament. For me, I think that what I am hoping that the leadership of Parliament will do is to learn very important lessons from what happened during all the issues and the controversies surrounding the e-levy, so that both from the executive side, from the side of the ministry, from the majority in Parliament, and then from the side of the minority as well, there are very important lessons that need to be learned. Because look, at the end of the day, when there is chaos, the picture, the portrait that is painted of our Parliament is not a good one, and it affects both those in the majority and the minority. So I hope they have learned some lessons and that they are going to do things differently. It has to take a lot of negotiation. For instance, e-levy came in, many said the minority was not consulted before, there were no discussions before, and so on and so forth. What is it that is going to be done differently this time around? So that at the end of the day, if there is any give and take that needs to take place, that is done before the bill makes its way to the House, so that we avoid those chaotic scenes that visited all of us during the course of the passage of the e-levy.
And we know that the Speaker will be critical, his role will be critical in bringing together the House. But from what you see now, do you see the House coming back on a peaceful note, particularly when the Speaker himself has raised some concerns about some persons within the majority side undermining his authority? Dr. Rashid, I hope you can hear me. I'm asking about the concern of the Speaker. We know that the Speaker obviously will be critical in uniting the House if it is, if there is a need for the House to run smoothly. But he's been raising concerns about some individuals undermining his authority. What's your take on such developments as well?
Well, I think both the minority and the majority side have a lot of work to do, because at the beginning, many thought that the challenge to the Speaker's authority, or if you like, perhaps his way of running the business of the House, was just a concern only for the majority side. But you remember, I think we saw the minority whip on his feet just during the last hours of their sitting to challenge or, if you like, raise objections to the Right Honorable Speaker when the matter of the referral to the Privileges Committee was being discussed. So there are, yes, I think issues both from the majority side, but also from the minority side. And I think that is why there is leadership in Parliament, so that, all these issues, matters that are controversial or matters that are likely to generate any debate or disagreement among the leadership, I think those matters could be resolved amongst them before they make their way to the plenary, because we don't want them to be projecting an image of disagreement, particularly with the Right Honorable Speaker, and then disagreement amongst themselves is okay. But when we begin to see very serious cracks, and just remember, our legislature is the only arm of government for which all Ghanaians see what is going on at almost every stage, and that is the barometer for the health of our democracy.
Right.
And if what we see is disagreements, what we see is chaos, what we see is an image that they cannot see eye to eye, and they cannot sit down, disagree, but run the business of our country in a very decorous manner. Then very bad signals are being sent.
Very troubling signals, yes, indeed. But we need to be wrapping up, but obviously we can't go without talking about the concerns of the Santro Kofi Akpafo Lulubi areas as well. They've been crying that they've been without representation in Parliament for quite some time now. They're turning their heat on the speaker now, mounting pressure that at least they'll be able to get some leeway so the Electoral Commission could go ahead and organize fresh elections in the area. Do you see that happening easily?
Well, I mean, I have to tell you, it continues to baffle me, how Parliament can sit, if you like, unconcerned. I thought that this should be the number one matter that should have occupied the attention of the 8th Parliament. But we can't have an incomplete democracy. We can't have a group that is not represented in Parliament. So I think on that matter, I'll just leave it at that. But let me take advantage of this platform to say that one other matter that I would like to see Parliament look at is the raging controversy about the Achimota forest. Because, I mean, this is a matter of a lot of public concern. I think in the last few days, if there's any matter that is being discussed in our country, is that matter. And definitely, Parliament needs to get involved in this so that at least we are clear as a country what is it exactly is going on. I mean, we need the truth. We need some transparency, and we don't have to live in what is called just a civilian rule. I think we are in a democracy, and democracy, I mean, comes with two key ingredients: accountability and transparency.
Right, and
I think Parliament must lead the way on that.
Right, and Doc, what we know about that is that the minority, specifically the ranking on the Lands Committee in Parliament, they are serving notice already that they would be hauling the minister before the House just to answer some questions together with the Forestry Commission. But knowing that the de-gazette or the declassification of the Achimota forest has got to do with an executive instrument, I'm just wondering if Parliament has a great oversight in terms of trying to question the President's decision.
Well, I mean, let me tell you, there is nothing in our republic that is beyond Parliament. I mean, people can interpret the law anyhow they want it, but there is nothing beyond Parliament in every republic. So this is a matter of public interest. I mean, Parliament needs to get involved. We need the truth. I think the right things must be done.
Yeah, but I'm asking a question about simply because of this whole difficulty that we may have in terms of having Jubilee House cooperate with MPs, particularly when it's got to do with some discretionary powers of the President.
Well, I mean, that is where I would hope that there's unity in Parliament. Because you see, over the years, once we get to some of these controversial matters, then you see the party lines being drawn, and the interest of the citizens and the interest of the country gets thrown aside. And I just hope that this time around, because we can't be living one controversy after another. That is not good for our democracy, and that can spell doom. I mean, if we are all not careful. And
if
when there's doom,
right? If the parliamentary option fails, will courts be the appropriate means for us to settle this?
Sorry?
If the parliamentary option fails, will the courts be the appropriate platform for us to deal with this?
Well, I guess we have no choice because, I mean, if we truly live in a democracy, I think we have to go by the rule of law. I mean, so if Parliament fails, I think it will be the courts. And I just hope that the courts will live up to the expectations of the citizenry.
All right then. Dr. Rashid Draman, thank you for joining us. He's the Executive Director for the Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs. We need to apologize for the poor quality of sound there. But this conversation is not ended yet. In fact, we need to hear from the MPs themselves. Joining us will be one of the MPs who's very passionate about the issues we're talking about now. Roxy Nelson Dapiamako is joining us right here on the AM show. It's all coming up right after this break. Please stay. And thanks for staying with us here on the AM show on the JoyNews channel. Time now to get to the details as Parliament, we know, is resuming its activities this morning. There's a lot on the table. We started off with Dr. Rashid Rahman. Time now to hear from some of the MPs themselves. Fortunate to have the South-Dying Member of Parliament, who's also a member of the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee of Parliament, joining us this morning. Honourable Roxanne Nelson Dafiamakbo is my guest on the AM show. Good morning to you. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, my brother.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
Yes, it's been a while.
Yeah, no, a long time no see. But
it's been a couple. And I believe that because it's on
definitely he'll be back.
Yes,
definitely he'll be back. And you've been away as well, I'm sure, to the constituency.
Yeah, to the constituency.
Look at how things are going.
Mainly working also for Parliament.
Okay.
If you recall, we spent about 6 weeks touring the country, holding public accounts hearings. You must have heard that we referred in excess of over 160 entities for prosecution, for mainly procurement breaches in the 2018 Auditor General's report. So we just concluded. And on that note, let me use the opportunity to say good morning to my constituency, Peki, Bali, Brevet, Tongo.
I'm sure that they're watching you this morning.
Yes, they do. They watch JoyNews a lot. A lot. Especially the guy of Peki, Togbe Akudompe, Togbe Atiklaja, Mama Tomalo. They do follow.
So good morning to all of you if you're watching us from the constituency. So let's get into the details. Already, even before you go into the chambers for the very first time after the break, some of your colleagues have started giving us a hint that the minority will be taking a serious action on the controversy surrounding the Achimota forest. Why is the minority really concerned about this matter?
Yeah, it's mainly because the Achimota forest is a national eco biome. Biome means a forest of some natural importance to the ecological setting. Now, if you take a bird's eye view of Accra, you only see Ifwa Satellite Park as a green patch. You only see Achimota Forest as a large green patch. Adjoining that is the almighty University of Ghana greenery. Then that's about all. You used to see the entire Hacho, Agbogba area, Shoman to the Kwabena Hills. It's been degraded now. Degraded in the sense that the hill face is being scooped for buildings. People are scooping it to get building plots to build their residents. So the Kwabena Hills, it's also eroding very fast as a greenery. So is the Aburi Hills. If you are approaching Peduasi, gradually we are chipping away the green face of the mountain and we are building. So the only green vegetative cover that is of some eco importance to the city of Accra. The Accra is a breathing city. Is the Achimota Forest Reserve, a 100-year-old forest reserve. Then we are told that by some stroke of an executive pen, in excess of 361 acres is being described as a peripheral forest cover that the government of the Republic of Ghana is willing and has actually disposed of, as it were, to the original owners. Now, I have been taught by serious people in law. I've been taught serious principles in land law and natural resources. One of the key principles in land acquisition is that when you are a grantor of land, the reversionary interest inheres in you perpetually. What that means is that if you give me a piece of land as an allodial title owner, to say, to build, let me say, how to plant 10 acres of teak. And for that purpose, you've given me those 10 acres parcel of land. Right. If tomorrow I refuse to plant teak and decides to say build an estate on that 10 acres of land, I have to come back to you because the purpose of the land has changed. And if I also refuse to go ahead with the plantation at all and decides that I want to give off the land, I want to give it out, I must come back to you. Right. That's the reversionary. Okay. That is what others call the right of first sale. Okay. So how come that the old family that are reputed to have granted the land to the government of Ghana, dating far back as 1921, first acquisition, second acquisition 1927, right. And then the acquisition was converted into a forest reserve and woodland. The reversionary interest in the Owu family for all these years. How come the people who are our grantors now are grantees of government?
And by that, what are you suggesting?
What I'm saying is that somebody has granted you land. He's your landlord, right. Technically speaking. 100 years later, right. But let me also make the point that in Ghana, you can only hold land for 99 years. Right. Okay, so any other decisions we have to renegotiate. Right. So let's assume we are renegotiating the matter. How does your grantor now become your grantee of land? How is government of Ghana now giving land to the Owu family as their grantors? When originally the Owu families are the grantors of government. They granted the land. So if government is no longer interested in turning Achimota forest into a forest reserve for which the land was originally acquired, you only give it out.
But you've heard the explanation.
Not on any terms.
But you've heard the explanation from the lands ministry.
Hold on.
Right.
You have to give it back to the Owu family on no conditions. Because,
everything?
Yes, they have the reversion. That is my point of law, and that is the law.
But you were just stressing the fact that if you look at the area, it's a green belt, so it's of strategic importance to government. Government says, well, we don't have the money to pay you, but let's compensate you and give you some portion, just a portion.
The compensation issue is a red herring they are throwing in to confuse everybody.
You feel that's
the law is very clear that when by an executive instrument you acquire a land for the interest of the state, the only available option to the persons from whom the land had been acquired through an executive instrument is for compensation payment. It's for compensation payment and nothing more. So how does government say that I don't have money to give you, but I have land to give you?
Yeah, but because the land has
value. It doesn't make sense.
Obviously, but you know that the land definitely has value. That land, that piece of land, the value now as is higher, much more higher than at the time.
Let's get this discussion very clear. The point I'm making is that you acquired the studios of Joy FM to maybe stage a play, right? Okay, on some for valuable consideration. If you are no longer interested in the use of the studio,
you give the entire studio. That's your.
No, Joy. You must ask Joy. Joy has the reversion.
Yeah.
The studio must return to Joy. Yes. That's what we call reversion. See, reversion means going back. Right. Now I tell Joy that when I acquired the land, when I acquired the studio, I was supposed to have compensated you. Right. I have no compensation, but now I have the studio to give you as compensation. It doesn't make sense in any land law that I have learned at all. And that is why the confusion is that your original grantor now becomes the grantee of land by government.
So basically, government is giving out something which is not theirs. That's the argument. Basically.
No, government is giving something that they acquired for a purpose.
And
if you are no longer interested in converting the Achimota forest into a forest cover, right. Just allow the people to take their land back. Don't say that I am giving you that land back as a compensation for the compensation that I ought to have paid you.
Well, really, what's the suspicion of the minority? Is it the case that
our suspicion is that that Achimota forest cover or reserve is of strategic ecological importance to the people of the Republic of Ghana. So for a government to use an executive decision, which is through an executive instrument, to say that we are no longer interested in 361.50 acres of land and describes it as peripheral land. My brother, do you know what it means to have 365 acres? That is like a whole town. To describe that large parcel of land as peripheral. You see, Minister Abu Jinapo wrote a letter to Parliament last year, sometime in June, and said that as a government, as the minister in charge of lands and natural resources, they intended to do what they called Green Ghana, to plant trees, to, as it were, improve our forest cover over a period of time.
Right.
And that it will cost them about 125 million Ghana cedis to do that.
Yeah.
Eventually, for starters, he came to Parliament to say that they spent about 12 million Ghana cedis for last year, for starters. In this year's 2022 budget, there's a provision to Green Ghana. That is to further
That's
plant.
the agenda.
That's the government's agenda.
Yes.
A government that seeks to Green Ghana, to, as it were, improve our forest cover because of the dwindling forest cover, now decides to give off a well-established vegetative cover of prominence, such as the Achimota Forest Reserve. 361.50 acres of that. Is that not policy contradiction?
But some will say,
no.
Well, the Green Ghana agenda may complement, make up for the losses that you're making.
So how do you say that I want to ensure that you don't put on weight and I feed you with beef?
But
that's a policy contradiction.
But the point is, government will still make up with the massive investment that perhaps they're doing elsewhere.
How do you invest massively into recovering or replanting trees so that we recover our forest cover or we improve on our forest cover? And yet, by another executive decision, you give away an established forest cover.
That's where the problem lies.
That's where the problem is.
But beyond that as well, the fear is the minority may not be successful at getting what it is that you want, because the president has issued that executive order declassifying the area as a forest reserve. So you are in for a very, very hard time.
No, it's a decision.
With government.
This is not a matter that we can tackle in Parliament, in my view.
Yeah.
Because this is an EI. So it's a matter for the courts. If a citizen is minded, and I'm contemplating that,
going to court?
Going to the Supreme Court. Because you see, the EI was issued based on two things, according to the minister's own statement. That there was a pre-agreed memorandum executed by the Kufuor administration sometime in 2018, given effect by the John Mahama administration in 2013-14. So they are only implementing those pre-agreed and executed memoranda. The contents of those memoranda are contrary to the content of the EI that has been issued. So on that basis, the executive decision is unlawful, it's a nullity, it's contrary to law.
So what will you be asking the courts to do?
To strike down the EI. The EI will have to be struck down. The Supreme Court has power to strike down anything. They have power to interpret the Constitution. They have power to strike down a provision of any law if they think that it's unlawful, it's unconstitutional, and it's all that.
Yeah, but it's also about the powers of the president. We know that, for instance, if you
the
look
powers
at
of the president can be checked.
Yeah, but if you
the
look at
powers of the president can be checked.
But if you look at the constitutional provision, obviously the president has laxity to do what he's doing now.
Yes, but the judiciary has the power to check the exercise of that power.
So how soon are we expecting you in court?
We are, you see, I am here to even have a copy of the memorandum executed by the Lands Ministry, right, especially under Osamils, between Osamils and the OUS. I'm looking for that copy. I'm gathering some documents. As soon as I get hold of them and I apprise my situation properly, yeah, we'll challenge this decision.
Okay. Now let's talk about the SAL issue, the Central Kofi Akpafulolobi areas. They are also raising some concerns. They don't have representation. They've petitioned Parliament. They've petitioned the judiciary, and nobody seems to be coming in for them. Are you going to take some steps to mount pressure in the House? Because obviously, for the residents, they are worried they don't have an MP. So how do you intend to tackle that issue?
Let the record show that the petition speaker sometime early last year. Now, when speaker met with them, and I had the privilege of being invited by speaker to sit in, and I think it was for a purpose. So after the discussion, speaker made it clear that contrary to Order 76 of our standing orders, a petition to Parliament or the Speaker ought to have been routed through a sitting member of Parliament. So Speaker recommended that they do so through me. So they brought a petition. I have worked on it. I have filed my motion and at the Speaker's Secretariat waiting for admission. Right. When it is admitted, then I will move it on the floor and pray Speaker to constitute. Their prayer is that they want Parliament to inquire into the circumstances that has led to SAL not getting representation in Parliament. But the point I must quickly make is that if you study the entire process, government deliberately created this constitutional crisis for SAL. Government deliberately waited until sometime in October 2020 to pass the LI for the creation of the Guan district. Now, what that meant was that they created the Guan district and placed the entire south, that's the 4 traditional areas, Central Kofi, Akpafulolobi, and Likpe, into the Guan, or under the Guan, as constituting the Guan district. And you also know that by our constitutional provisions, by our constitutional stipulations, no 2 constituencies, no 1 district should sit in 1 constituency, but 2 constituencies can sit in 1 district. Right. So by creating the Guan district, you're actually saying that the MP for Buem at the time, who was serving the SAL at the time, can no longer serve as the MP for Guan as a district. The other crisis preceding this one was that part of SAL, or SAL was part of Hohoi. Then the creation of the region, they deliberately carved SAL out of the Volta region and technically out of Hohoi. Meanwhile, until the end of 2020, December, or until the end of January 6, 2021, SAL people had a city MP. That was the Honorable Dr. Benis Helu. So it was a deliberate attempt to deny the people. What it also meant was that the Electoral Commission had limited time to prepare to create a constituency by a constitutional instrument, and by so doing organize elections for that new constituency. Right. If these things were not deliberately done, then I don't know how come. Because the report for the creation of the regions came out as far back as sometime in June 2018. So government had the whole of 2019 to have taken a certain administrative decisions regarding the administrative and the parliamentary status of the people of SAL. But they did it very, very close to the 2020 elections.
So what's the solution now? Going back, or?
The other problem created by Electoral Commission itself was that they took a decision to allow the people of SAL to vote in the presidential elections, but not to vote in the parliamentary elections, which was also another deliberate decision. Because you see, elections are organized in constituencies. So how come the people of SAL voted in a presidential election, which is also organized on constituencies? I heard some people say that in the presidential election, the whole country is the constituency, but there's nothing like that. Because the ballots are cast at polling stations, and the polling stations belong to constituencies.
But my question is,
Yes.
what would be the solution? Going back to the traditional constituency?
Now, Gwan has been created, but there are internal issues. There are some of them who don't want to belong to that Gwan district. It's also it's a matter that we can discuss at another time. Right. But going forward, it means that as we speak, SAL cannot have a representation in the 8th Parliament. But I disagree with that position in law. Because the constitutional provision that when you create a new constituency, it can only come into effect at the end of the life of that parliament. It's not applicable in this situation. It's not applicable.
You feel that it's a case
situation.
that they've been disenfranchised? That's what
deliberately disenfranchised.
But this is where another
deny
constitutional
representation
crisis may also come up. The fact that the Electoral Commission is independent. So having Parliament order
their independence is subject to law. No, in the performance of their functions, it is subject to law. And laws are subject to other laws. Laws do not operate in isolation. That is why you can find in a constitutional provision or in a statutory provision that's subject to any other laws. So laws are always implemented with the point that you must have regard to other existing laws covering that circumstance or situation as it pertains on the ground. And as they pertain in law.
How do you intend to weather that constitutional deadlock that we may hit? The fact that the Speaker would not be able to order the EC.
No, we can do that.
You don't have the powers to do that.
No. The prayer of the people is that there should be a constitutional, parliamentary inquiry. If that committee is quickly formed and looked into the issues and they make recommendations, the Electoral the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana can make recommendations to the Electoral Commission. And they will follow because we approve of their budget.
So you're virtually saying that if they don't listen to you, that's when you may show them where power.
No, but there are constitutional issues, they are legal matters. That, you see, we must work as a people to serve the interests of the people. We must not allow our whims and caprices to overshadow the interests of the people.
We'll talk about the business that we're expecting today in the House, but then the AG, the Attorney General, has stated its position on the matter, indicating that if indeed we need to go ahead and create a new constituency there, then we have to annul the Boem elections.
How is that possible?
So you allow a rerun of... You've heard him say that?
No. Yes, but it was a business argument. He said so in Parliament. But I think he said so in response to a question, just to ward off the question. Because in any case, the Boem election is being contended in court. So I won't go into that. But how does the annulment of Boem election remedy this constitutional crisis? It has no bearing. It has no bearing. The question we should be asking is, when the South people were made to vote in a presidential election at given polling stations within the 4 traditional areas of South, which constituencies did the Electoral Commission have in mind in creating those polling stations? They are unable to answer. They are unable to answer because polling stations belong to constituencies.
So here's the case that you have the community in another region, their mother constituency in the Volta region.
No, since the expiration of the 7th Parliament, that's by a flushing of time, that is gone. But in 2020, prior to the 2020 elections, and which took effect, who brought into life the 8th Parliament, the people of SAL, even though taken away from the Volta region, well, technically belong to the Hohoi constituency, which had a sitting member of Parliament.
That's your interpretation.
No, that's not. That was the reality on the ground. Helu left Parliament 6 January, midnight 6 January 2021. Helu was the member of Parliament for the Hohoi constituency. Okwai constituency consisted of that's Alavanyo area, Okwai itself, Fodome, Vli area, and Sal. Then somebody decided that I will create a new region and I'll take Sal out. But we are just being told by the constitution that if you create a new constituency, it cannot come into life into force until the life of that existing parliament. So when Helu was the member of the 7th parliament, Helu had then been elected by the people of Hokwaya, Lavanyo, Fodome, and Vli, including the people of Sal. So until her term of office, 4-year mandate had come to an end, she was still the elected representative of the people of South. That somebody has also decided in a certain referendum to take to another region.
Well, that's the president.
Yes.
He's not.
No, but these were deliberate government actions. That's the point I've been pushing. If you check the issue from any angle and perspective, things were deliberately done.
Anyway, we'll see what you'll be doing in the coming days in Parliament, but obviously that's why we're here as well. The activities.
And I hope Joy and yourself
will definitely be following
as the matters unfold.
That issue. Definitely. But your colleagues are joining you in the House. Yes. There's this outstanding matter of some of your colleagues who've been referred to the Privileges Committee in terms of absenteeism. What generally are you on the lookout for as you resume? And also knowing that, there was a lot of tension the last time we saw MPs converge.
Yes. I think what has happened is for the Speaker to assert his authority in managing the House. You recall that we've had a lot of bashing from the public regarding matters of some of our members who frequently absented themselves from the sitting. And particularly when between January, February, and early March, every Friday I'll get up and raise the issue of quorum and also the issue of Ejapa. So my decision to raise quorum actually brought the issue of attendance
also
onto the national radar, and it generated a lot of debate. So Speaker decided to take this decision, and pursuant to Order 52 of our standing orders. So he's taking the decision. The matter is before the Privileges Committee. I suppose that they sat during this recess. So their report should be ready. If it's not, I'm sure they'll be winding up. Whatever recommendations they will make to the House, we'll debate it, take a decision. I don't know what decision the House will take, but whatever it is, a decision will be taken.
In the end, should we pardon your colleagues?
It's not about it's not about pardoning or punishing. We'll have to look at the evidence that had been presented before the committee by the respondents and the deliberations that went on, then the decision of the committee and their recommendation, decision, conclusion, and recommendations. So if I get the report, then I can assess the situation. But it says that as an elected representative of the people, you must take your work seriously. And if you don't do that, you can be punished. In fact, pursuant to Article 97(1) C and D, you can be removed, from Parliament. So that is about that.
I must be blunt with this. Are you expecting your colleague Sarah Ajasafo? Are you expecting to see her this time around?
Yes, I expect to see. She's look. Let's put this other matters aside. Ajua Safo is such a consummate politician and parliamentarian.
Really?
Yes. I worked under her as the deputy. In Parliament, leadership is leadership. Right. They lead the House. She was the deputy majority leader for 4 years and was the leader of the Women Caucus. Ajua brought the women group in Parliament together and did a lot of work for them. Ajua's leadership of the House for me was outstanding. She complemented the majority leader well during the 7th Parliament. Even as 106 members, that we gave them a lot of trouble. But Ajua had a way of dealing with some of us, the troublesome ones on the floor. And when there are very difficult businesses, she will constitute a committee, will look at it, so that we don't create too much problems on the floor. And that's how you lead. I don't know what happened in this 8th Parliament, but assessing her in the 7th Parliament, she was outstanding for me. Very, very outstanding as the Deputy Majority Leader. And had a presence on the floor, in the front bench, when she was on her feet.
Are you not saying all of this simply because she aided your cause during the controversy surrounding the e-levy?
No, how did Ajua aid our cause?
I mean, they didn't have the numbers.
You see, no, let the point also be made that I don't think Ajua affected e-levy in any way. You know, in January, government blamed, in December, when they wanted to pass the e-levy as part of the budget, and it was resisted. We went on Christmas break. When we came back, then they began to blame Speaker. Let me give you the timelines. In the whole of January, they spent January blaming Speaker, that it was Speaker's in absence. That was our inability to be stable. That was why they couldn't table e-levy. Then they abandoned bashing Speaker to now bashed Ajua Safo. In February, they spent the whole of February bashing Ajua Safo. Ask them whether they had ever tabled e-levy between January and March ending. It was March ending that government saw the need to table e-levy and had it passed.
So this has nothing
Hold
to
on.
do with it.
What did government do when we returned from the Christmas break? Didn't government announce that because of the issues, they themselves were going to go around the country to gather views? Did they gather views for 2 months? Didn't they go around holding town hall meetings? So they finished with their town hall meetings before they came back to Parliament. So how was Speaker or Ajua Safo responsible for delaying the passage of e-levy? These are the things we must expose.
Definitely.
You understand?
Sure
so
the House
Ajua wasn't responsible for the early passage or late passage of e-levy. They had it wrong. You ought to consult the people before you introduce a new tax regime. They didn't do it. The people resisted. It's as simple as that. It took them so long to put their house in order. So it's neither Ajua Safo nor Speaker that delayed the passage of the e-levy. It was the government's own doing.
All right, then. And that's the Member of Parliament for South Dine, Roxanne Nelson Dapiamakpo. We need to wrap up on this conversation. Your final word.
Yes, we are resuming today. I expect to see a full house. Normally, that will be, it's customary that on the first day. We call it, we are like school children. We are back
so your first day at school.
Yeah, first day at school, yes. So I hope to see everybody back fully fit, healthy, so that we can consider the business of the house. But this time, not too many loans. They should bring legislations for us to pass, not too many loans.
Anyway, let's see if the president will heed to that call, but I'm grateful.
We have too many loans already.
This morning. Stay with us here on the AM show. We'll return shortly after this break.
It is the expectation of the committee that fiscal consolidation will take hold gradually, and the mid-year budget review will provide further fiscal fine-tuning to ensure that the fiscal consolidation efforts stay on track. Despite the improvement in the trade balance due to favorable commodity prices, the external sector has weakened somewhat due to developments in the capital and financial account. The domestic economy does not fully benefit from higher oil and gold prices due to retention agreements in these sectors. The increased repatriation from dividend payments and profits, as well as the net portfolio reversals, have resulted in a widened balance of payments outed and loss of reserves. The prevailing tight global financing conditions and further policy rate hikes in advanced economies continue to pose risks to the external outlook. Headline inflation surged in April 2022, and both headline and core inflation have stretched further above the upper limit of the bank's medium-term target band. The heightened uncertainty surrounding the inflation dynamics has weighed heavily on the domestic environment and significantly depressed business and consumer sentiments. The inflation numbers show that while food inflation has accounted for the increases in inflation over the past year, the recent jump in April shows that relative price increases in the non-food sector is accelerating at a fast pace, which provides information on the extent to which prices are becoming embedded. The bank's latest forecast shows a continued elevated inflation profile in the near term, with a prolonged horizon for inflation to return to the target band. Inflation expectations by consumers, businesses, and the banking sector have also heightened. The risks to inflation outlook are on the upside and emanate from the availability of inputs for food production, imported inflation, continued upward adjustments in export petroleum prices and transportation costs, possible increases in utility tariffs, and potential wage pressures. The second round effects of these administered price adjustments would further amplify inflation pressures in the outlook. These considerations show that with strong rebound in growth and the closing of the negative, the balance of risk is clearly on inflation. The MPC took the view that it needed to decisively address the current inflationary pressures to re-anchor expectations and help foster macroeconomic stability. On the basis of the above assessment, the committee decided to raise the policy rate by 200 basis points to 19%.
From our end, we are a bit disappointed with the increment because our initial analysis on the sources of inflation clearly indicates where it's coming from, and that is the supply side constraint. So we made it clear, of which we also communicated to the central bank, that it may not be appropriate to immediately increase the policy rate, but to look at other supply side constraints and how we can incentivize the private sector produce more, so especially from the food side. So we were actually not expecting an increment at this stage, but it has happened. But cumulatively, for the past 2 months, you realize that there have been over 4.5% increase in policy rates, and that's put a lot of pressure on businesses as well. Anytime the policy rate goes up, a lot of things happened, and the effect is largely felt by the private sector. They may have their opinion, but we are also talking from the real sector and from the perspective of the private sector. One, the interest rate is likely to go up, even with the initial increment of 2.5% in March. We have witnessed an increase in interest rates, and the pass-through is not fully yet. We are expecting that it will increase further. So with a further increase in 200 basis points of 2%, we are expecting a very huge increase in interest rates, and that will affect the cost of production of businesses. The other effect also is the possibility of the high rates of the crowding out of the private sector. Anytime there is an increase in the monetary policy rate, the treasury bill rate also goes up significantly. So with a 4.5% increase to 19%, we are expecting that the treasury bill rate will also go up. And we have a trend where anytime the treasury bill rate goes up, you get the banks, instead of lending to the private sector, prefer to give money to the central bank or
And thanks for staying with us on the AM show. Now, we know that the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana has, for the second consecutive time, increased the policy rate, the rate at which it lends to commercial banks, by some 200 basis points to 19%. Now, the increase in the central bank's monetary policy rates means, obviously, that the cost of borrowing is expected to go up at least for the next 2.5 months. So how will this affect the ordinary Ghanaian? That's also on our focus today here on the AM show. Let's speak to Professor John Gatchius, the Dean of the UCC Business School. Thank you so much, Prof, for joining us this morning. So we weren't expecting it, but it's been announced. So what's the implication for businesses and, in fact, the economy as a whole?
Well, a lot of implications. First, as we know, the cost of borrowing is expected to go up. And when that happens, there are possibilities surrounding that expectation. One, there is that likelihood of potential default, because when the interest cost goes above a certain point for businesses, for individuals, repayment becomes a challenge. So the banking sector and the financial sector will be more strict relating to their credit policy, how to follow up on businesses and individuals who have borrowed from the banks. So that will happen. Then again, there will be cost increases across board, because when the lending rate goes up, typically it's a cost to businesses. And that will affect government also. Government has a number of projects, supply contracts and the rest at a particular price relating to inflation, at a particular price relating to cost of borrowing. But now that cost of borrowing has gone up, mobilization of funds by contractors and suppliers will become difficult. There will be delay in supply procurement for projects. There will be delay of project execution. In some cases, the cost overrun may cause abandonment of projects that government is supposed to undertake. So these are some of the implications for government and for individuals as well as businesses.
And for some experts as well, they say that perhaps what the central bank is doing is reacting naturally to the COVID economy, quote unquote. Do you sense that possibly the pandemic and the external shocks are having an impact on or influence on this decision that we're seeing from the Bank of Ghana?
If you can, Rick.
Yes, I'm just talking about the external shocks, the COVID-19 pandemic and some other issues that are happening at the global level. The belief is that that's naturally influencing the decision of the central bank.
In reality, the policy position does not speak to that reality. Because if you look at the monetary policy position, it has reversed all the kind of protection that they provided for credit, protection they provided for the banks. They have removed all that, which means they don't believe that there is COVID effect anymore to protect the market, to protect businesses. So we are going full as though we don't have any challenge on hand. So if you say that we are reacting to COVID, I read the Bank of Ghana's press statement, and they are trying to talk about supply constraint. The level of supply constraint that we had in 2020, we cannot be speaking about that now. So it is strange trying to emphasize that in their press release. But that is not reflected in the policy decision they have taken. The policy decision showed that everything is okay. All the benefits we gave you, we have removed all of them. You remember they removed the cash reserve position that they sent to 8%. They rather added up to 12% instead of bringing it back to 10%. So the policy position does not express what people are saying.
And in practical terms, give us a sense of this. How will this affect the ordinary Ghanaian, for instance?
Well, I look at the cost of borrowing or the lending rate that will go up as a cost to businesses. And depending on the strength, I expect that to translate into price determination, and that will fuel inflation. And already there are events that are to take place to fuel inflation, and this will strengthen it. And looking at Bank of Ghana's indicators that they look at, perhaps we may see another round of policy rate increase in the next window, and that will continue to create more challenges for businesses, more challenges for individuals, and that will go a long way to create problem for cost of living for average Ghanaian.
And generally, we know that even assessing loans itself is a difficult thing. So it appears that with an increase in this policy rate, that may worsen the situation. Access to credit has been a challenge here in Ghana.
Well, I indicated that earlier on, that if the increase in the interest rates is taking place in quick succession that we are seeing, then it gives signal to bankers and financial sector players that there is potential for defaults. So they need to be protecting their NPL. Therefore, they will be very strict with their credit policy and ensure that those that, in their opinion, are likely to repay will get access to credit. And that will be some of the implications for the banking sector and for individuals who want to access credit. So access to credit may become difficult to, especially new entrants, because you have to prove to be sure that this high rate you are able to pay. So that is what, that will be the challenge going forward.
And the projections going forward, is it looking good? The fact that, well, in a few days from now, the BOG giving some other factors may attempt to reduce the rate. Do you see that happening anytime soon?
I think unfortunately the BOG doesn't seem to accept the argument that perhaps they are misdiagnosing the problem. So their thinking is that when they restrict liquidity, then they will be solving the problem. But the auxiliary measures taken in addition to policy rate hike rather create more problems. So perhaps they need to revise the diagnosis they have made about the economy. The release already indicated that they expect inflation to go up again the next window. And there are other developments taking place. All those things will strengthen the increase. And as I indicated, perhaps the Bank of Ghana may be guided by the possible increase in inflation in the next window to hike the rate again. So we are actually operating within a cycle until other development take place. I do not think that in the short term we can run away from hike in inflation and hike in lending rates.
But you are the expert here, so help us out in terms of perhaps what you describe as a more optimum approach for the central bank to take. What should be that priority now for them?
Well, I think that when you are hiking rates, you need to appreciate that it caused some problems within the economy. And then the least that should happen is that even in the midst of the hike, there should be some flexibility for access to credit for business activities to be going on. But what they have done, they have restricted the ability of the banks to transform deposits into various types of credits by increasing the cash reserve I believe that they need to moderate on the cash reserve because it is hurting the economy. It is putting too much pressure on the banking system, and they are not able to deliver what they expect to do to provide the lifeblood for business activities to take place in the country. I also noticed that there is some misalignment of the response in the banking sector. You have a treasury bill rate around almost 17%, but you will be surprised that some institutions are going to the bank to place their monies, and their monies are placed below treasury bill rates. It is disturbing. And the reason why that is happening is because the cost of raising or mobilizing funds for the financial system has become very, very expensive. And they are trying one way or the other to protect themselves. So while you are putting the cost of mobilizing funds for the banking sector high, the banking sector is also trying hard to ensure that they lower the rate they give to those who are placing money in order to make some difference. And that distortion is not good for the economy.
And indeed, looking at what it is that you've been telling us all this while, it appears there's a far-reaching effect on the economy, which is already set not to be in a good shape. So is that going to complicate the matters further and give a tough time to the managers of the economy?
That is so, exactly so. Especially when yesterday I had an encounter on another station with the Director of Research of the Bank of Ghana, and he indicated that the policy measures that they have taken would take 3 to 9 months to bear fruit, which means they are looking at almost a year-long pass-through effect before we can see any positive sign. So that alone should be a worrying statement from the Bank of Ghana that whatever they are doing, we are not going to see the benefit in the next 3 months. And then while they are expecting the first tranche of the policy measures taken to bear fruit in the next 3 to 9 months, other measures that they have taken is fueling inflation, and which means that the first expectation will not be met, and then more will be added to it. Then it will be elongating the period that the financial system, the market, should be seeing some positive result, and that is worrisome.
From the perspective of a lot of globalists, they feel that this is the natural economy or business cycle that we're experiencing. Some way, somehow, the world will repair itself, including economies in the developing world, such as Ghana. Do you subscribe to that view that we're just in a phase, we'll move out soon?
Well, I thought we shouldn't take that in absolute terms. It is true that globally, all economies are facing one challenge or the other. But the way you build your economy will determine the level of the effect or the severity of the effect. The structure of our economy as being built is not that strong enough to limit the effect on us. So that is the aspect I think we should be discussing. If you take US, UK, and the rest, and you say they are experiencing high levels of inflation, unprecedented over the last 40 years, that is no solution. The solution is, why will you be experiencing high food price inflation when you are producing those things in the country? That is the question we need to be asking ourselves. What do we do so that next time we will be able to give protection in such a way that even if we are experiencing high levels of imported inflation in certain areas, it can be accommodated by the level of lower inflation in domestic production, especially in the area of food. So that is what I believe we should be questioning. But to resign to what is happening to the global economy, that is happening here, is happening there, and for that matter, it's as if we should just accept it. It is not, a good sense of economic management. So we need to question our policies and the structure that we have built over time and see what we should do to the structure to be able to be resilient.
The details we are getting from the Statistical Service after the release of the inflationary figures appears to suggest that much of our problem has got to do with importation. So perhaps this may be the time to pursue some substitution, isn't it? What measures would you want to see from government in that regard?
Well, I wouldn't say substitution. It's just a clear failure of policy measures. Look, our economy, no matter what we are discussing, is largely agrarian. Therefore, put pen and paper down and count the number of agricultural related produce that we are importing into the country. That has nothing to do with substitute. That is where your strength is. That is what you should be doing anyway. You have failed to do that. So you should go back to how we should face agriculture. That is what we should be doing. That is where the problem is. We will import anyway, but our importation normally should be intermediate import that will feed our industries, especially for items that we don't have. I'm not sure we are consuming about 40% or 30% of produce in Ghana fruit juice. So what should we do about that? Value addition to our agricultural produce. So these are things I believe we should do. So we have run away from this. We should come back to them.
But then, government still has a lot to do in terms of shoring up export and also doing a lot more in terms of substitution. You agree?
Well, a lot needs to be done. Number one, we have not added enough value to our traditional commodities. In addition to that, we have not expanded our export destination in a manner that will give it the needed market access. That ought to be done. Then, when that is done, with the kind of support that is needed to those who are engaged in the production, I believe we can scale up. But that is where we are not able to do. Even when it comes to subsidy for our farmers, it is becoming a problem. When we know that there is a way of administering subsidy, and it's being administered in Europe, administered in America, and administered in Canada. But we speak as if subsidy is a no-go area because we are not willing to learn how we can deploy subsidy in a manner that will be beneficial to the economy, that will ensure lower prices of locally produced items, and that will ensure value addition in a robust manner to our export destinations. That is what we need to do. And it's as if we are not guided by this principle. We say we are doing industrialization, 1D, 1F. Majority of those businesses are just existing businesses. We have not seen their activities in terms of export, value addition. We have Exim Bank. Basically, Exim is supposed to support critical imports into the country to feed our industry and to promote export diversification, value addition for export. The way we are administering Exim is questionable. We need to question all these things and reorient ourselves and refocus the policies. That is the only solution for us.
And just as we wrap up on this conversation, we know that government is in dire need of funding, and obviously it will not hesitate, for instance, if the opportunity presents itself, to mobilize revenue domestically. So giving this increment in the policy rate, is that likely to worsen our debt situation as well? Or, as you may say, that will be far-fetched?
Of course, the fiscal situation is part of the problem that we are seeing in high inflation and raise in the policy rate, and which will affect lending rates and other base rates in the country. And so the cycle continues. We have not broken the cycle yet. we've not gotten to that point. So they are feeding each other. Our debt level is still very high. Repayment constraints are still persisting, and therefore we cannot run away from the effect of debt burden on the economy. And what we are seeing right now is inability to assess or to get the needed revenue to do expenditure. So we are not actually doing much more expenditure right now. So whatever you see telling you that expenditure is being constrained is because we don't have the funds to spend. We are not spending as we ought to spend within the quarter because the funds are not just there. And we are seeing that to be constraining expenditure. I believe we should get to a point that fiscal measures should be seen as incentive for economic activity. And when that is done, the return for government in terms of revenue, it will be higher. But if government want to grab anything today, irrespective of the medium to long-term economic difficulty that it will impose on businesses, then that becomes a problem. So I think it is time government should look at some expenditure measures, some fiscal measures as investment into the economy rather than being ready to take left and right. And that will constrain a lot of things.
All right then, Prof, I'm grateful that you've been able to spend some time with us here on the AM show. We wish you the very best of the day.
Thank you.
And thank you too for staying with us here on the AM show. We'll return shortly after this break. And certainly we are all excited that the hard truth returns from Tuesday, May 24, 2022, right here on the JoyNews channel. Akosia Konedo is the host, and she's joining us via phone this morning. Akosia, good morning to you, and I hope you're safe, particularly as we experience some downpours this morning.
Safe, I'm fine. It's unfortunate I can't be with you in the studio, but
Yeah.
I'm still okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me on the call this morning.
Anyways, we're excited that you are returning with the hard truth here on the JoyNews channel. So what are we to expect generally from the show?
Well, I'm excited. I mean, so the hard truth still remains being, talking to the captives of industry and getting issues out there. We need to have the conversation where we are all comfortable. It's about time we put leaders on their toes. What we see right now, it's flooding all over, issues of land being sold, and these conversations are matters to us. So expect nothing but probing questions, expect topical issues this season, and I'm sure we'll have an amazing time. So I'm quite excited I'm back. It's been a long time I've been away to be with family and, to restructure, to have a blast. So an amazing season. This is our 16th season, and I'm quite excited about that. It's been a while, actually.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a while, yeah.
And quite a lot has changed ever since you left, and you are now returning in an era where, of course, there are some reports pointing to how the environment and the media space is not as friendly as it used to be. The concern is you're coming back with the truth. That may upset and, obviously ruffle some feathers as well. So are you prepared for that as well?
Oh, I mean, we live in Ghana. Things happen every day. Yes, things are not the same. The media is being attacked. Yes, but if you love your country and you want to be that voice of the voiceless, you try paying your quota to the national cake. I think it's the least I could do, putting yourself out there and then confronting authority. That's the least we can all do. I think the most important thing is this: we all have a voice. Everyone in Ghana has a voice, and if you keep mute, things will go haywire. So it's about time. Use your voice for the right reasons. Use your voice. Talk about things as they come. Don't sit down and fold your arms and pray. Prayer is very good, but once talk, and not just talk, but put the right issues across, then the leaders, be attentive and listen to our plight. So it's very necessary we have a conversation. So putting myself out there, that's what the problem is for. Well, let's see how it goes. I'm ready.
Indeed. We can only hope for the best. But right. I know that there are some curious minds out there asking the question, well, what would I miss if I don't listen to the hard truth or watch the hard truth?
Are you kidding? You missed a lot. I mean, so we're talking about, so it still remains the platform where we have top personalities on. It still remains the platform where, so this season, for example, we are talking to personalities across Africa, across the world. We should expect people from Nigeria, from Singapore, from several African countries and the diaspora. So you can't say you won't watch it tonight. And it's actually happening tonight at 6 p.m. on JoyNews.
And we'll definitely be on the lookout for that. Thank you, Akosia, for at least making some time for us this morning. I hope you're out of bed already, because this is a very, very inviting time. But thank you for joining us. Well, we're still here in the studios and working it out, but you need to know that definitely in the course of the day, you would need water. Water is indeed life, and water regulates your body temperature and keeps you alive and kicking. So Awake is premium purified water, which is treated through strict purification processes to ensure that every bottle on the market refreshes you better. We have the perfect size for every occasion. Don't forget that there's a 330 as well as the 500 ml bottles to fit your pockets and bags as well, 750 ml for the heavy drinkers. And also there's the 1.5 liters for those who always want more. So we have also introduced our special 19-liter jars, and that's for offices and homes as well. So you need to opt for that. Now all you need to do is to stay awake with Awake purified drinking water wherever you go. So come on, grab a bottle of Awake water and get quality hydration. Awake purified drinking water, one for life. And remember that for every bottle you purchase, an amount is donated to the National Cardiothoracic Center. So it's going into a good cause as well. And it's produced by Casapreco. For bulk purchases, don't forget to call 0262 351 251. So 0262 351 251. And I'm sure that you would get as many that you want. Now, do you know, obviously, that the income of a young entrepreneur from some selected businesses is exempt from tax for 5 years? A young entrepreneur engaged in manufacturing, information and communications technology, agro-processing, energy production, waste processing, and also tourism and creative arts, horticulture, as well as some medical plants as well, does not need to pay income tax on these activities for their very first 5 years of operation. So a young entrepreneur engaged in business that enjoys an initial 5-year concession benefits from the following applicable rates does not need to pay for the additional 5 years. Now that's Accra and Tema in terms of 15%. Then there are other regional capitals as well outside the 3 northern regions. It's 12.5%. Outside other regional capitals as well is 10%, and the 3 northern regions is 5%. So that's the regional breakdown for you. And for further clarity and information, I'm sure that you need more, just get in touch with your nearest Ghana Revenue Authority office, and GRA is definitely serving you with integrity, fairness, and they are always there for you. So we take a short break here. We'll return and bring you some more here on the AM show. Well, so as we know it, 4 hours of rain this morning, and so much is coming out of that. The fear was there was going to be flooding, and true to that, it's happening, and we're getting some updates on social media as well. So you can just go to JoyNews. It's at JoyNews on TV. You'd see our page right there. You can comment on what's happening across the country, particularly in Accra, where we've been experiencing some showers. And here we understand that parts of the Braka old timers during the rains has actually been flooded, and a lot of people are reacting to that. This one is from Chris Fanuel. He says that I heard the president speak. Please, nobody should allow him to cut sword again because he's rather causing financial loss to the state. I don't know how related that is to the flooding. But then there's also one from Abubakar Saliu. He says that our leaders we voted for to govern the country are jokers when it comes to governance. They didn't regard us as human beings at all. They only care for themselves and their relatives. And then he continues to make some other comments. Then there's one also from Emmanuel. Emmanuel is saying this morning that a white man should actually come back and take over Ghana. I don't know if that will be the way out now, Emmanuel, but that's your view on this. And Don Petit is here. Don Petit says the 4 more people are not part of the flood victims. No comments on that, Don Petit. So here's the man in red. Accra is getting too choked with buildings. Why won't you experience all this while? Meanwhile, there is enough vast land across other regions of the country. So that's coming in from Manred, obviously concerned about how we should depopulate Accra and try as much as possible to open up the space and go to some more areas for development. But there's more also coming through. This one says that the country needs thorough cleaning, and that's coming through from Godwin Awute. He's trying to call for Accra to be clean, and we understand that the regional minister as well has been touring this morning as part of his Make Accra Great Again project. We'll be bringing you some updates in our subsequent programming, but for now, a lot more of you are talking about the flooding this morning, which we are just learning of. So Sri Boy says, I wonder why people are still blaming the government for our own actions. We throw rubbish into gutters, and when it's raining, that's where people throw their garbage. And we've blocked the water courses too. How will water flow freely? Please, we should put a stop to this. So that's what she has to share with us on this one. Pa Kwesi is also here. He's saying that people will see this and defend their political parties, that they are doing a good job. And that's a hash word, Pakwisi, I'm not ready to use this morning. Berima Nana Kwame is here. He says that you have used your buildings to block the waterways, and now you are crying. Every available land in Accra is being used to build irrespective of the consequences. Change of attitude is also key to avert such a disaster. Then Michael Martin Mensah is also here. Michael says that there should be a flooding festival each year, and since we are not ready to learn from the problem, so it's the same script every year. So Michael is getting used to it and says we should have a festival out of that. Alexander the Great says go out and work. This video was all over the place. Part of it is truncated. So let's take the one from Potiphar Emmanuel, saying that this is from Kwabena Apia, actually. It says that all it takes is just one electric wire to break from the poles, and how could we be so careless? Benjamin Boachi says, when there's rains, that's when residents in Accra lose their bragging rights. A typical village, he says. So these are some of the comments you're sharing. I feel that we can take one or two before we move on. Pope 1 says that all these are as a result of corruption from the presidency to the ordinary Ghanaian on the street. Every office you enter in Ghana, from the head to the ordinary security, you have to put down an envelope. One day, a single downpour of rain will wipe off the whole, country away because of our corrupted minds. And then we wrap up with this one from Ni. Well, unfortunately, we've lost that, but we'll definitely get back to your comments.